Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome everyone once again to Tiger Claw Radio. This is your host, Critical Failure. Yes, boys and girls, I'm actually looking forward to this one. Last week we talked about the list of worthwhile DOS games, and we got about 2/3 of the way through. This week, a little bit later on in the show, we're going to go back and finish that, and I'm excited to be able to go through the last, I think it's 40 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in a row, 4 rows. Yeah, the last 40 games in this list where I'll actually have time to do it justice. I also got an email from our good buddy Hemrock. I think I got an email from him, right? Jeez Louise. Yes, we did. I'm not going crazy. I thought because he also checked in on the on the YouTube comments. All right, and we've also got some good chiptunes that we're gonna play. Ooh, and I'm looking forward to the chiptunes. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Tiger Claw Radio. Stick with us. More to come. All right, this one is Gampoy, Gampoy. The album is The Silver Line on the Horizon. He put together a 4-track EP, all done, made using the LSDJ program. This is very much takes me back to the 8-Bit Collective days. We talked a little bit about the old school 8-Bit Collective library in the last couple of shows. Now, this is not an old album from then. This came out in April 2018, but it very much sounds like 2010 chiptunes. It's pretty dope. It's a free EP. Check out the links in the description, whatever. I'll make sure that this guy gets a link so you guys can go get it, because it's very, very good. TCR, stick with us. That to me is an awesome song, and very roots LSDJ stuff. And by that I mean it's a slow build for a track. That track runs 4 minutes and 7 seconds, and you don't hear a drum beat for at the very least the first 60 seconds or so. Very slow build, which is the way a lot of those LSDJ tracks were. So a track like that would show up on 8-Bit Collective, and probably get like 4 listens, and then just wither into obscurity. But the people who actually went to that website would grab copies of it who happened to be there at that time, and it would disappear from history, except being in the collections of the old 8BC alumni. And I haven't heard a track like that in quite a while. So that's Gamepoi, who I just discovered looking for stuff for the show. Looks like he's got a few different albums out, spaced out in time quite a bit, like 2012, 2013, and then nothing for 5 years. Yeah, this is a guy who needs $1 in the hat for sure. All right, but let's talk about some video games. The internet has been abuzz with good old Resident Evil, and you guys know I love my Resident Evil. This is a franchise that I went ballistic for like 6 months ago, and it kind of finally died down, and I was able to return to my normal life. But we have Resident Evil 8, or Resident Evil Village, I guess it's called. They did that thing where it's called Resident Evil Village, but the V and the I and the L's are lit up, so it's like also like Resident Evil 8. I'm confused about how I should refer to this game verbally, but they made a new Resident Evil game, and it's very much like Resident Evil 7. Okay, so Resident Evil 7 came out. It was first person, very spooky, very prime villain, run from the prime bad guy kind of deal. Then we had the Resident Evil 2 remake and the 3 remake, which were both kind of throwbacks to the old formula, but polished up quite a bit. And then now they've gone back to the front end of the franchise, which is first-person spooks again. And I gotta say, I really, really liked Resident Evil 7. I was late to the party, like I always am, but I really liked it. Played all the way through that game, and it was a spookier game than I'm used to. Like, I like spooky games, but I don't really have a stomach for that kind of thing, so I can only hang in there in short bursts. I played that game all the way to the end, and because of the way I am, the shorter runtime, I think, worked really well for me. That was one of the complaints I had heard about the older, Resident Evil 7. 2 big complaints about that game. One was it's a pretty short runtime for a AAA game, and 2, all of the good spooks are right at the beginning of the game, and probably about two-thirds of the way through, it just becomes into a generic shoot the same a weed monster over and over again. Both of those are legitimate complaints. But that aside, I mean, let's be honest. I'm not an art critic. I'm not. I try not to take a scholastic approach when it comes to video games or art in general. It's just, does it move me or does it not move me? And that game, I was down with it. I've heard, especially when Swingle and I talk about this, Swingle takes a much more mechanical approach, and he didn't really enjoy it as much. He help me out, Swingle. What was the game you compared it to? You were like, it's Far Cry 3, but with Resident Evil or something. When he saw the game, he saw like a carbon copy of another formula. And I never played Far Cry 3, so he may be 100% correct. But thankfully, I didn't see that, because what I saw was an awesome game. And I'm kind of staying away from the press materials for this new game because, of course, I'm not going to get it at release. That's just the way I am. And I want to be surprised. So we'll see. Meanwhile, Resident Evil Remake 3 has dropped to $20 in the middle of the Capcom sale that we had just a week ago or so. So that is now obtainable. And I ended up passing on it just because people were kind of iffy about it. I don't know. But I'm not entirely above playing that game. I wasn't in that headspace during the Capcom sale that just got finished. But apart from that, yeah, it is what it is. So, any thoughts on the new RE game? I know the crowd who listens to TCR, this is not a AAA game crowd for the most part. When a new demo comes out, a lot of us are older guys. We don't really get excited for that kind of thing. There's the whole bitterness that comes with age, where you can feel that the hype train is something that's corporate manufactured, right? And games that get legit hype just make me sad, because it's like we know it's not real. But when I first saw what they were doing with this new game, just for a second, I got that real, like, 14-year-old boy hype. When the world is still a big place, and, art can still be beautiful and games can still be beautiful. Just for a split second, I got that. Now, that second has passed. Believe me, I'm back to earth, where I know this is all corporate manufactured, and I know the game is going to be just another, whatever it is they do. But for that split second, I was glad to be a part of it. All right, let's see what else is going on. I have some random notes about some other things that have been going on last week. That is the big news event that caught my attention. Usually the way this goes is we break into just talking about what's been played over the last week. Hey, what you been playing, man? Yeah, that kind of thing. And sometimes that can get difficult if I haven't had a lot of time to play games. So I took some notes. Big one is RetroArch on Steam. I think I talked about this last week. RetroArch, the emulator, showed up on Steam, and I was like, it's listed as a closed beta, and there's an apply button. So it's like, oh, well, we'll just click apply and see what happens. And the second I clicked it, it was like, congratulations, you're in the beta. Now you can play it. Okay. So I installed RetroArch, and I started messing around with it. A little while back, towards the end of the last MagFest that I attended, I was interested in getting into TurboGrafx 16 emulation, but I wasn't able to make it work. Like, I didn't find a working TurboGrafx 16 emulator right away, and I stopped looking before I actually made it work. Probably not difficult to do, I just gave up. So this thing has a TurboGrafx 16 emulator in it, which I think is pretty cool, because I've heard people talk about the TurboGrafx 16. My experience with it is very limited, and I wanted to check it out. I like shmups. There's supposed to be some really good shmups, some really expensive shmups for the TurboGrafx 16. On my PS3 downstairs, one of the games that I have from the PSN is Bonk's Adventure, which I got on a recommendation. That's a pretty fun game. And then the only other TurboGrafx 16 game I really have experience with is I got one TurboGrafx game off of the Virtual Console on the Wii before it closed down. So this is when it was literally in its last day or two. I was just like, well, let's get a couple of things because we're not going to be able to. And I got a game called Twin Bee, which y'all are probably familiar with. And I really dug it. I didn't play it much. I played Twin Bee probably like 3 or 4 times. But I felt like I got my money's worth. Felt like it was a good game. And most of all, I got what I was expecting. I was expecting a shmup that looked kind of cute, but was overall fun to play, and that's what it was. Yeah, so, it is what it is. I think the gimmick of that game was that it was like a 2-player simultaneous play, Twin Bee, there's 2 of you. And I even have the Nintendo game. It came to the NES called what was it called, Strider? I have it in my NES collection, but I've played it all of one time, and I've had it for over a decade. But yeah, so that's my experience with the TurboGrafx 16. It's really just those 2 games, and I know that there's that Gauntlet clone that I was really interested in playing for a while, Dungeon Explorer, I think it's called, and then also there was an NES game called Dragon Spirit, which I loved, and I've heard on good authority from people I trust that Dragon Spirit is worth playing on the TurboGrafx 16. So just that little handful of games. Now, understanding that the TurboGrafx 16 library in and of itself, like as a whole, is not huge. It's not enormous. That's like, how many games did I list there? 4, maybe 5 tops. And that's it. That's really all I know about the system. That combined with the one video that Bithead 1000 put out a few years back, where he was showing off his TurboGrafx 16 import shooter collection, and it was like a $10,000 game collection or something crazy like that. He was holding up $1,000 games I was like, yeah, this shooter, it's pretty good. It was $900. Oh dear. I don't know, man. So I don't know. It's just something I wanted to experience. And then going through my old footage of the last MagFest, there's Sean talking about what game was it, Sean, that we were playing in the console museum. It was kind of like one of those barbarian games where you play as a Conan type guy, Conan the Barbarian, but I can't remember what it was called. It says it in the video. I have to go back and look at it. Watching that video, listening to Sean talk about the TurboGrafx 16 also made me want to go kind of revisit it. So that's something I have yet to explore. And now I guess with RetroArch on Steam, I suppose I can. What was the game I actually played on it though? I was messing with the way it's set up. I don't have a ton of experience with RetroArch, but you install the games and then they're connected to a database so that you can download like the box art. And I thought that was kind of cool. So I ended up playing like a pachinko game on Game Boy on RetroArch, and also a couple of random Atari 2600 games, and that's really all I played with it. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool program. I especially lean towards Atari emulation because the Atari development community and the embraced emulation in a way that no other system has. I mean, with the exception of Activision, because I know Activision still doesn't want their Atari games distributed, but you can go get those, those mainline Atari games, and they're right on Atari age. You can get them. I've watched the actual developers of some of those games give lectures, which, by the way, if you've got 2 hours to burn, go watch a post-mortem on Pitfall or a post-mortem on Yar's Revenge. A second. Those are amazing videos if you're into tech at all. Just listening to what those guys did to put together those games. And one of them, I can't remember if more than one. I know at least one of them was like, yes, please go get the ROMs. You can take the entire library of work of the entire Atari 2600 and fit it on a thumb drive. And you should do that if you have any interest in it. These are not guys who are like, we want to maintain the rights to Yar's Revenge so that we can get a nickel in revenue per 100 copies or something. No, please go enjoy the culture. Go jam with it. Which is awesome. I wish the rest of video games would follow suit in the same way, but I don't think they can. So yeah, that's a tangent if there ever was a tangent. Also on my notes, I had some fun with Game Maker, just hanging out doing my thing. I did finish my program for which was essentially roll a 6-sided die. I finished it. It works. You click on the die, it rolls. This is the way game development is described to me. Don't try and make a game. Just make simple programs that do simple things, and those will be able to evolve. So that's what I've done. You click on the 6-sided die, and sure enough, it rolls, which is, great. I've just the goal for me really was to I wanted to write a function that I could call in several instances, and I have done that. Okay, 6 or 7 lines of code that you can reuse over and over and over again. It's like one of the cornerstones of being able to program is making functions, which is great. So that's Game Maker. Will I ever release anything? Who knows? I also have those the programs I was working on in RPG Maker, which were a ton of fun, but I don't know if anything actually fruitful will come out of them. But I messed with Game Maker a bit more this past week, for the first time in a while. I worked on it for a while and then kind of put it aside. Let's see. Got a couple more things on my list. Renting an Unreal Tournament server finally, playing on Neverwinter Nights with Sean, and then the funny Sean is not at the Ray video, but all that comes in just a few minutes. First, I want to take the time to thank the sponsors. This is a Patreon-sponsored program. These folks, my goodness, better folks than me, they dig deep and they keep the lights on and they give of their resources in a time in which where resources are hard to come by. So big thanks from the bottom of my heart to these individuals. And I wish I could offer early access to the show. I really do. But the show comes out as soon as it gets done for everyone. So the best thing I can offer is to read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. And they are Hemrock, EmeraldRangers.com, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, Konstantin Kelman, and Eric Controller. Thank you guys so much. I hope you're enjoying the party. And check out EmeraldRangers.com. The Keystone Capers article I wrote is up and live there. Those guys are awesome. They are the last bastion of the written word, at least in our group. They produce written word material, which I love. But most of all, EmeraldRangers.com, just like the next round. This is one thing that they have in common with the next round. This is a project which at its core is let's bring us together and work under one banner. You know, we got Sendu, we got Kaiser, you know, and we got some talent that I'm not, unfortunately not familiar with. Sendu knows a lot of creative types who work there. It's a really good site, and they've been going for a good while now. So I'm very happy to be a part of that site. I wish I could write more. I really do. I'm doing the best I can. So thank you so much to Sendu for being patient. All right, how are we doing here? We're 22 minutes in. I feel like I burned right through that 22 minutes. I still have these 3 bullet points, and then I want to do the the bit about the worthwhile DOS games. So let's go back to Game Boy and play another track off of that EP. Remember, this is a Pay What You Want album, so follow the link. Give the guy $1. Throw some change in the hat. He's got 4 people listed on his supported by thing, so this is a guy who deserves $1 in the hat to get access to it, but he does offer it for free, so you certainly don't need to. We'll go to the second track. This is Infader RMX by Nineheart / Dante's DMG. You're listening to TCR. the stripped down nature of those tracks reminds me of college. When I was in college, I had a little MP3 player, because I didn't have a smartphone at the time. I was still rocking the flip phone. Lucky to rock the flip phone, by the way. And I would go to 8-Bit Peoples, I would go to 8-Bit Collective or whatever, but ultimately I'd end up with this little MP3 player, and those were the tracks I would listen to, these very stripped down LSDJ tracks. And when I say stripped down, I'm not saying bad or overly simplistic. I'm just saying there's not a lot of layers to it. It's not a crowded song. A lot of FL Studio tracks, or tracks without those limitations on them, it's layer after layer after layer. The sound gets very crowded very quickly, which, is not a bad thing either. But I think it's that 4 channels or whatever it is of sound, and that's it. It has a very distinctive, unmistakable sound, which is why I'm really digging this album. It's taken me back in a big way. All right, how we doing? Renting an Unreal Tournament server. Okay, so let's go back to 2012. 2012, I had an internship. I talk about it quite a bit. It was the first time in my life I ever worked in an office after having a career in plumbing. Swinging a shovel, carrying tools for a living. And during that time, we rented, me and Sean and company, I think Alex was in on it too, Alex Swingle. We rented a server from GameServers.com for Counter-Strike 1.6. We had Counter-Strike 1.6. It was a very small server. It was like 8 or 10 slots. And then we had a Mumble server on top of that. And the whole thing was like $15 a month. We ran that server for a couple of years. I really only remember one full game full of people we knew that we had a great time on. But apart from that, Sean and I played there several times. I spent a few nights figuring out how bots worked, which is very difficult for the original Counter-Strike because it wasn't inbuilt. It was like a patch you had to patch in. And on top of that, I just wasn't good with that kind of thing yet. But we had a great time. Running a server was a really positive experience. We ran a server another time where Sean engineered a Minecraft server in the early days of Minecraft, which was also a ton of fun. And that was another thing where like everybody in the group played on this server at some point. Even people who like popped in a few times. Like I remember Shintai had a couple of houses in that server, and Dalamar from Wasted Seconds built himself a wool castle in that server. Guys who have since, God bless them, gone their separate ways and moved on. So Sean and I have been playing this game, Neverwinter Nights, past few times that I bump into him on Steam. We both love our Dungeons and Dragons. I'm personally back into pen and paper role-playing right now. So Sean was like, hey, you like Dungeons and Dragons? How about Neverwinter Nights? There's an enhanced edition on Steam. He and I both have it. Let's give it a shot. He recommended specifically we do one of the DLC matches that is short in scope, something that you can play and beat. And I can't remember the time scale that he gave, but it's something like 6 to 10 hours or something like that. It's not a one-session thing, but it's not crazy long either. Yeah, here it is. Pirates of the Sword Coast. It's $2.99, so it's one of the lesser expensive DLCs. And we started playing through it. And, it's pretty good. It's one of the things about Neverwinter Nights, if you've never played it, where it's a fun engine for a game engine, but the inbuilt mainline story game is not great. So the best way to play Neverwinter Nights is to get the game and discard the mainline story game and just play modules. Download some free ones, get the DLC, go to the Steam Workshop, do that kind of thing. So the problem that Sean and I had was we have played Neverwinter Nights together in the past, but we tried with this main story, and that turned me off to it. So we went back to Pirates of the Sword Coast, or I say went back to, we just went back to Neverwinter Nights and tried something apart from the main story, and I've been enjoying it. Certain parts it's awesome, certain parts it drags. That's okay, that's the game, but I've been liking it. So while we were getting set up, Sean and I were talking about just the nature of the online group of people who play this game, and it's played all the time. Like, I got Neverwinter Nights. I got it a few times in the past. The first time I came across it was when I bought. I got a Dreamcast from Dalamar, from WastedSeconds.com. I don't know if Wasted Seconds is still around, but good old Dalamar, David, good guy. I was able to get a Dreamcast for $10 from him. God bless him. And he just threw Neverwinter Nights in there. He had a complete in-box edition. It just was in the box when I got the Dreamcast, and it showed up unannounced. God bless him. That's how I came across Neverwinter Nights for the very first time. I didn't really dig into it until later, until Sean was like, hey man, there's really good multiplayer opportunity here. So I got it off of GOG. Even though I had that CD, I got it off of GOG so that I could get a multiplayer code. And because I didn't want to bother with the CDs, I'm not going to lie. I like the big box games, but this is a game that came out after, it was a smaller big box game. The cardboard box is like the size of a DVD container. So I got it then, and then years later when it came out enhanced on Steam, which I'm looking at the page now. When did that come out? It has to have been like at least 2 years ago now. Yeah, March 27th, 2018. I bought it on Steam as soon as it came out. So that's a couple years ago, and Sean and I have been playing it like in the last week or two. People are still playing this game online, like a lot. So Sean mentioned, oh yeah, there's people who play this like in a persistent world, kind of like an MMO. You look at some of the servers and they're like 200 slot servers or something. So at first I was like, wow, that might be kind of fun to maybe just get a Neverwinter Nights server instead of like Minecraft or something like that. It is possible. It's a little tiny bit more expensive than I think I would want to do on my own, because I was able to make it work. I found a dealer who would set one up for like $15 a month. A little bit more expensive than I think I would go. I think if I'm going to rent a server, we talked in the last couple of years about getting an Unreal Tournament server, like the original Unreal Tournament, like for the summer or something. And I looked that up last night. And I can get an Unreal Tournament server online today for $6.80. So that's something I want to do, like in the near future. So boys and girls out there who are listening, who like the old school PC games like me, do you have a copy of the original Unreal Tournament? Because I have it on Steam. That's what I like to use. Let's play some Unreal Tournament. Let's rent a server where we have control of the map list and do what we do. And, get it going. I liked Unreal Tournament. I had a lot of fun with it. Let me know what you think. Because I don't mind getting it set up and just me and Sean playing. Except that I think if we're going to do that, we could probably just wander into some random server and it'd be fine. I don't know. And I think that right there is what has stopped me from doing it after all this time. Neverwinter Nights with Sean, renting an Unreal server. The final thing is Sean is not into the rave. It's my most successful YouTube video in a long time. It's an 8-second video of Sean sticking a light stick in his nose. We were at MagFest. I took Sean to the chip space. And Sean's a heavy metal guy in a big way. And we were there. What time was it, Sean? It had to been like 2 in the afternoon. That kind of thing is like a late night activity. And we were just there walking around, checking it out, and the energy was not there, the magic was not there. But you know what was there? Some lady handing out glow sticks, and she gave one to Sean, and that went in his nose. And I'm glad that footage is available, because that was a situation where the second I took that little shot, I knew exactly what I was going to do with it. I knew what the headline was going to say. I knew I was going to go. I just finally made it happen. Kaiser ended up making an emoji on Discord, which is pretty funny. So that's pretty awesome to see. How we doing? That's the list. That's video gaming for the week for me. I think with that we're ready to go back to worthwhile stuff for DOS. Wow, we got 40 games to cover, and we're already 40 minutes in. I don't know. You know what? Maybe we'll do 20 and then I'll just finish it the next week. I don't know. But I'll tell you what. Let me get some water. And we'll check the list out. All right. Let's talk some DOS games. Let's zoom in here. If you're following along, there is 4 rows left on the bottom, so I'm scrolling down to the leftmost side. We start with the Realms of Arcania trilogy. Now, what do they have written here for Realms of Arcania? Because this is not one I played when I was young, but I tried it. I came across them on Steam. They dumped out on Steam, and I picked them up for like, I don't know, $1 or $2 in the middle of a sale. Played them way after the fact. This is dated 1992, but I probably played this, in 2016, something like that. Rich storyline, unparalleled level of depth and intricacy, unique combat system, high level of character customization, wonderful atmosphere. Realms of Arcania is a very unique, complex, and demanding RPG series with a steep learning curve that sweeps away the majority of gamers, but true RPGers will love it. Glad I mentioned the steep learning curve. I love the atmosphere. I found it pretty difficult to roll with, though, just because, again, I didn't play it when I was young enough to spend a ton of time figuring that kind of thing out. Based on The Dark Eye, right? Is that role-playing game? I liked the way towns worked in that game particularly. That's my experience with the Realms of Arcania trilogy. We're probably talking about like an hour or 2 of game time tops. Is what it is. My hat's off to anybody who's ever really been able to get anywhere with those games. Next we come to Realms of the Haunting. I like roots FPSs, early FPSs, first-person shooters back when everything was being called a Doom clone. This is marked 1997. The graphics are superb, with every location and being different and impeccably detailed. The music enhances the feeling of suspense and urgency. The imaginative story keeps you interested at the end. The successful blend of different genres adds to the appeal, and the interface is easy to master. That's one I still have to play. It's been on my wish list for a while, just never pulled the trigger. Next, we go all the way back to 1990 with Red Baron, a game I know very well. Not much into flight sims, but this one is an exception. I first came across the full version on the same CD that I got from a magazine I mentioned last week. Some magazine was being sold with, hey, there's a couple of full version games on here, and Red Baron was one of them, and the one that I ended up playing the most, even more than Descent, which was also on that CD. Next, we have an interesting story, Rise of the Triad Dark War. 1994, first-person shooter with revolutionary effects, ridiculous variety of weapons and enemies, solid multiplayer, great music, and just plain destructive fun. Doom may have been gory and violent in its own right, but the sheer gore and violence factors made Doom look like My Little Pony. Now, I don't know about that, but it was really gory. Rise of the Triad, the way I'm told is that this was originally designed to be like Wolfenstein Part 2, but then that portion of it, the way it fits into the Wolfenstein story, got scrapped, which is why you have these sort of like Nazi-esque type soldiers walking around, but there's no real connection to World War II Germany. Body parts would fly all over the place. People would beg for their lives. It's a pretty intense game. It's good stuff. It holds up, in my opinion, at least as well as any of the other classic first-person shooters could. It's a good one. Then we come to Sam & Max Hit the Road, 1993. We're talking about classic point-and-click adventure games, but this is one that I never quite got around to playing. Then we have Scorched Earth, 1991. Talked about Scorched Earth in great detail a few episodes back, and it came to the realization I never actually played the original Scorched Earth, to the point where I even looked it up on Abandonware, not Abandonware, but XTC Abandonware, one of these Abandonware sites. Didn't quite go as far as to download it and get it set up, but I took a look at it, and it came up with like 20 different clones. And that's why I'm familiar with it, never having played the original Scorched Earth, is because of all the clones. And then we come to... Now this is a little image with a little bit of text that I think takes me back quite a bit. Shadow Warrior, 1997. One of my adolescence defining games. This is the defining game of my pre-internet era life, is Shadow Warrior. Shadow Warrior closes an era of FPS making, during which level operators Level operators. During which developers cared more for the level design, interactivity, and humor and style than for the amount of polygons and 3D models. Shadow Warrior can be outdated and unoriginal, but it is a precious testimony of the epoch. And more importantly, it's still great fun to play. I would agree with that. I would say that's a very good description of Shadow Warrior, actually. It's not perfect. It's got problems. But my goodness, is it good. I challenge you out there, if you're familiar with Shadow Warrior, load it up again and try and do a sword-only run. Good luck, son. Even on easy difficulty. Fun game, though. I used to try and crank the difficulty up as high as it goes, just to see if I could beat the first level sword-only on hard. Never did it. Came close a couple times, but there's a part towards the end of the first level where there's like a turret, chain gun sort of thing. I didn't see a way to get past that without shooting. SimCity 2000, 1993. That's another great game. Memorable music, intuitive controls, and charming pixel art graphics have only gotten better with age. Truly a timeless classic piece of realistic simulation software. It's both fun and addicting, but if you were serious about digging dead bones, take a quick look at the original and more simple SimCity. Ooh, shots fired. I liked SimCity 2000. I always liked it. But there is something to be said about its complexity. It was a huge step up in complexity from the original SimCity. And when I was younger, I really had a hard time playing it. I really did. This was one of the few games that my wife locked onto and had like a phase with where that's what she played. My wife is not a gamer, so when she finds a game that she likes, that's the game she plays. She doesn't bounce around like I do. She'll play her game, and that's her game for a few years. SimCity 2000 was one of these games, and she got really, really good at it. She figured out that you couldn't just start a small city and grow it into a big city. That's not really how SimCity 2000 worked. You had to lay out the infrastructure for a big city from the beginning, and that's how you were successful. And she was able to do some really cool stuff with it. Yeah, pretty cool. Then we come to Star Control 2, another one that is beloved that I kind of missed out on. Such a detailed universe map combined with adventure, strategy, and action makes Star Control 2 one of the most diverse games out there, and also one of the most engaging and entertaining ones. A breakthrough game in lots of aspects, and one of the best classic space adventures ever made. That's a big statement. Best classic space adventure ever made. You gotta understand, man, these late 80s, early 90s, that's when outer space was like... This was like Star Trek The Next Generation era, when there were a lot of these guys who would close their eyes and would find their imagination in outer space. That's where people's thoughts would take them, was to outer space. A lot of this fantastic, extraterrestrial diplomacy, that sort of stuff. A lot of games like that. Some did it very well. Very, very well. Master of Orion, it's a favorite here on the show. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so we come to the end of the first row of 10 games, and I think this is how I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to do 10 games an episode until we finish this list. The last one is Star Wars Dark Forces. This is marked 1995, though I remember it being earlier. But you know how, like, when you're actually older and you look back on these chain of events that you actually witnessed? I think it's normal for a lot of the timelines to be distorted. I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm crazy, but when I read dates off of these games, a lot of the times they feel distorted. This says 1995. I guess that goes to figure, because I remember Dark Forces most seeing it on, I want to say the original PlayStation. Like, I remember seeing it on a console before seeing it on PC. But let's read what they say. Terrific Star Wars atmosphere, tons of weapons, true 3D action, and several tweaks not seen in Doom, including the ability to jump, duck, tread water, and perform other amusing maneuvers. There was also far more searching and thinking involved, as opposed to just running around and shooting everything. 1995. And I think that's where that game lost me, is I remember cleaning out the levels and getting lost. And that's where I have a real difficult time with these games. And I understand there was a desire to make first-person shooters that were different from just run and shoot, because it got really boring. You ever go back and play Catacombs 3D? That's run and shoot, and there wasn't really anything else that game had to offer. But the way they did it was with this maze stuff. Find the button and open the door, and find the key, and find this, that, and the other. And it reaches a point where I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how to proceed, and I just can't anymore. That's the way it was with me in Doom 64. Doom 64 is another beloved classic. I like Doom, but I didn't play Doom 64 back in the day. So just last year when they put it out on Steam for $5, regular price $5, I jumped on it, man, because it's updated. You can play with a mouse and keyboard. You don't have to play with the N64 controller. And I had fun with it. It's not that I didn't like it. I enjoyed it, but I got lost a couple times, and I tried to stick it out because I wanted to be able to play it to the end. But I just reached a point where it's like, look, I'm not having fun. So that was the end of it. I just brought it up in my Steam collection so I could take a look. 2.8 hours is what I got out of Doom 64. Fun game. $5 regular price. So that's half an hour on the dollar. That's what I got out of it. I feel like at that point you get your money. You get your money's worth. That's not a huge win, but that's like, okay, I got what I paid for. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe that's heresy. I liked the more action-oriented games. There was stuff to shoot and things to find, and I didn't have to get lost. Getting lost in these games is a real turnoff for me. And that's it. We're at almost 50 minutes in, and I only did 10 games. So we're going to do the next 10 on the next episode. Let's shift gears. We're going to go to the fail bag. All right. Hemrock, my good friend. Let's see what you got, brother. Greetings and salutations, CF. Thank you, as usual, for another rendition of Tiger Claw Radio. I gotta say, the chiptunes are rocking. I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. I hope you can stick with me on this one. I know this one is a little bit less, spit polished than I think in the past couple of weeks. But back to the email. I'm working on my own top 20 list from the 8-Bit Collective. It's a daunting project since the number of tracks from the old APC was enormous. All right, let's talk about that for a second. First of all, I can't wait to hear a top 20 from you because I know you'll deep dive it and pull up 20 good songs. Also, when I first read this, I gotta say, my approach would probably be a little different. I don't feel the need to, because there's so much there. You're looking at gigabytes and gigabytes of music, thousands of tracks, whatever it is. I wouldn't necessarily feel the need to go through each one and pick top 20 all-time favorite out of all of those. I think it would make more sense to just pull out like 60 tracks and find a top like 10 of those 60. And then, okay, here's Hemrock's Picks Volume 1. And then you could just run a chiptune show for like a monthly chiptune magazine for like a year based off of that. I mean, there's enough there to do it. You could run an entire, chiptune program that would be really good for a good long time just off of the old 8-Bit Collective. But I tell you what, man, I can't wait to hear it. So back to the email. I don't know what's up with Rogue on Steam. Rogue's source code was released in 1986 under the BSD software license, according to this book. However, to my understanding, the original game was on servers and used in a university setting. Commercialization of the game came when porting it to personal computers under the publisher Epix, the people who brought us Chips Challenge and Impossible Mission. Apparently, a British company called System 3 bought at least some of the publishing rights from Epix, now defunct. Regardless, one could argue that payment for this iteration of Rogue on Steam is not necessarily charging money for the game itself, but for the time and effort to into ensuring that the game is compatible with current similar game and graphical options. Have you ever beaten the original Rogue? Couple things. No, I haven't, and you make a really good point about porting this copy of Rogue. Because again, I think I mentioned this before, but when I play Rogue on Steam, it's not the one my dad had. In gameplay, it looks very, very much like it, but there's a couple of small differences you would barely notice. Like when you move to the next floor, there's like a screen crush effect, and then it comes back again, which was not in my copy. There was no names for the levels. When you pass a level, you go from like apprentice, journeyman, adventurer, warrior. None of that stuff existed in my copy. We had just numbers. There was like a fraction that you could see that showed like your XP level and then how much to get to the next level or something. And then the high scoreboard at the end is cleaned up a little bit too. And there's no title screen on my dad's copy. So If it was open source, then clearly they made a couple changes to it and then are able to release it, that way. You're not buying the original Rogue, you're buying the Epic's version of Rogue, which was cleaned up for commercial consumption. I'm not sure how they got away with that without having to change the name, because it still says Rogue by the original authors, but I don't know. Not super interested, because I feel at this point, to your point, it's appropriately priced, and they're asking for a reasonable amount. $3, and then they get paid for keeping this game alive. In the abandonware era, all we ever really asked was, the problem was games at that time, you couldn't buy them anywhere. In 1997, when people were getting on America Online, and that's how they got on the internet, there was no real way to buy Space Quest. That's why it was available for download sites, like abandonware sites, and that's what people would say when they would argue the legality of abandonware was, well, it's just for preservation. Well, this one's been preserved, and if they wanted $10 for it, I'd be like, get out of town. $3 is even cheaper than what GOG typically charges, so I had no problem paying for that one. And have I ever beaten the original Rogue? No, I haven't. I went back to playing it again, and I haven't beat it yet either. I have to think there's something I'm doing wrong when I play it, like the way I'm dealing with armor or something. But it's been a good time. I don't think every game has to be beaten to be good. But whatever, it is what it is. I liked your article about Keystone Capers posted on Emerald Rangers. The game reminds me of the Sega Genesis title Bonanza Brothers. Have you ever played that one? Let me know when you appear on the Fastcast. Yes, Kaiser. Sendu, let's get the Fastcast going, because I feel like I let you down on that one. And you've appeared on TCR twice now. So I want to do a Fastcast. He says it elsewhere, but Sendu mentioned that theme that we played last week, they used it on Fastcasts, and I just missed it. But we'll get to that in a bit. He asks, thanks for playing the intro for the old Neo Arcadia cast. Was that you screaming anime? Hilarious. No, that wasn't me. That was from a video that was popular at the time. There was a guy who made a video entitled, "This Will Get a Million Views," or something like that. And he was going through a lot of tropes that showed on that videos had. There's a pretty girl. Hey, what? There's a cute kid. What? There's some, I don't know, people getting hurt. And one of the things he said was anime. And the very next thing he said was it showed was like, this video has been removed for it. He was like, no. That's where anime came from. The guy screaming anime. It was from another video. I always got a secret kick out of that because that video is actually pretty funny. I stumbled across a relatively new 4X freeware called Free Mars. Ever heard of it? Someone posted about it in Civ Fanatics Scenario League forums. See here and here for more info. That's 2 middle clicks. We're going to pop those open. We got Free Mars download. Looks very Civilization-esque. And then we have the thread from Civ Fanatics where they talk about it. Let's go back to the beginning. Free Mars, Sid Meier's colonization plus Civilization 2 Mars scenario plus SMAC. Okay, yeah, I'm down. Turn-based strategy, single player. Yeah, we'll give it a shot. Why not? Download. Your download will start short. Will start shortly. Jeez Louise. That's a jar file. What do we got in terms of size? 15 megs. That's doable. No, I've never seen or heard anything about that, but I'm totally down. Back to the email. This weekend I've been playing Civ 2 Test of Time. This is the game that I've been neglecting for years to my own detriment. Test of Time is basically Civ 2 Gold Edition with the bug fixes provided. Use the incredible Test of Time patch project files. You should be glad to hear that the pathfinding issue is largely resolved. Oh, great. What he's talking about is in Civ 2, Civilization 2 is a great game, boys and girls, but I always had a problem because if you try and issue an order to one of your units to move them from one place to another, they can't do it. They just start moving around randomly. It's really weird. Back to the email. The game is a little cumbersome to set up properly. See details here. but once you set to play, it's amazing. I was initially turned off by the game's pseudo 3D animated graphics when I played it years ago. However, there are many ways to customize the game to look nearly identical to Civ 2 Gold Edition. I'm really enjoying playing Civ 2 minus many of the annoyances. Civ 2 Test of Time has a strong community support over the Civ Fanatics Scenario League. I think the reason my Civ 2 scenario I posted there did so poorly was because all the players had moved on to Test of Time instead of the Gold Edition. I think you would really appreciate this Civ 2 Test of Time. Let's try it. Let's open up his links. What we got? Catfish Cave, resources for Civilization 2 Test of Time. Now, I run into this situation, now that I'm getting older, that I can feel myself having the same conversation that I've had before. And I feel that happening now because I was under the impression that Test of Time was on Steam, and I don't think it is. What is the game that's on Steam? It's not Test of Time, but it's like related. Give me a second. I'm going to see if I can find it now. See, these days, if you just search Civilization on Steam, you get a big mess of the modern Civ games combined with like Civ lookalikes that kind of try and do the same thing. Civilization 2. We'll just look up Civilization 2, see if anything comes close. No. I think I'm just going to have to do a deep dive in my wish list and see if I can find it off the air. Oh, well. Let's get back to the email because I know there's more. The game is a little cumbersome to set up properly. See the details here. But once you set up to play, it's amazing. Yeah, this is the same thing I read already. If you need some retro news, here's a few. We have 3 links. What have you been playing lately? Or, it's a better question, what is on the desk? Do you still have that PS2 hooked up? Well, I better get going. You should appreciate your good fortune. Okay, what I've been playing lately is essentially what I answered in the first half of the show. I do still have the PS2 hooked up, although it's been a little while since I used it. Most played game on the PS2 for me has been that Burnout 3D game, which has been a good time. But again, it's been a couple of weeks since I fired it up. It's still here, though. The news articles he links is the world's smallest portable N64 that actually uses the original tapes. Unreleased PS1 3D roguelike from the 90s finally hits the public stage. Irina Genesis Metal Fury is a new shmup on Kickstarter for the Sega Genesis. So the first one of these 3 articles is like, hey, we have a classic system in this new shape, which those articles don't do anything for me. But the second 2, new games that are really old, that are really new, that are really old. I like those kinds of things. Unfinished PS1 game Magic Castle launches more than 20 years later. Is it actually on the PS1? How do you get this game? Lo and behold, full version of Magic Castle has been released. You can download it now. On what, the PSN? How do you download it? You can grab a copy of the game and its instruction manual over on the Internet Archive. Whoa, look at that. It is the free. That is shocking. Magic Castle Kaiga 2020. Nut-Yorosi, which is the PS1 dev kit, right? That is interesting. That looks really good, actually. I'm looking at a screenshot that looks isometric 3D, that was popular at the time. Fit into a roguelike, I think that would have worked very, very well, actually. And what were the other things in the fail bag? Irina Genesis Metal Fury. Let's see what that is. Okay, we got Kickstarter. Let's see what the Kickstarter sounds like. Fun my game do. Fun my game do That's all I can hear when I hear that. Please fund my game. Well, it got funding. They wanted $42,550. They got $55,000. Good for them. With 13 days left to go. There's a demo, free demo. Okay. Emulators. Blast them window prototype demo. How much is the game going to be when it comes out? I don't know, man. I get really weary of Kickstarters because a lot of awesome products have come out on Kickstarter. And whenever that happens, I'm always like, man, I wish I backed that. But for every awesome project, there's 10 more that seem awesome at launch and never quite hit the light of day. I'm looking at the support tiers, and I'm trying to figure out which one actually gets the game. €1 or more, about $2. You get the demo ROM, which is pretty cool. Game ROM file with manual and PDF, which is €10, about $13. That's not bad. A multi-region cartridge is issued at €45, which is about $55. And for these pseudo-retro games like this, I think that's a fair price. It's not cheap by any stretch of the imagination, but that's what these games cost. I mean, they take a big financial risk making a new game for an old system. It's not an easy thing to do. So there's definitely a premium to be paid. This looks pretty cool, though. I will check this out. I don't know if I'll pay the big money and get the full version, but I think I might drop the $2 and get the little demo. Thank you for that, Hemrock, man. Doing the due diligence, checking out the news so that I have an ear to the ground. Oh, I think I skipped a line in the email. If I go back up, way back when he was talking about Rogue. Since I'm talking about wait, hold on. Apparently, a British company called System 3. Regardless, one could argue iteration game with current hardware. Although I can't imagine it took much effort to throw the game into some sort of DOS box bundle. Since I'm talking about Rogue, have you ever played Angband, one of the many roguelikes? It's still freeware to my knowledge and is a similar game with graphical options. I missed that line. I'm not familiar with Angband. But hey, man, it looks cool. I'm totally down. It really does. We're looking at a game that looks a lot like Rogue with ASCII graphics, but I would say more like NetHack than Rogue. The distinction being in NetHack you played as the @ symbol, and in Rogue you played as the ASCII face. Yes, please. I will download 22 megabytes for Angband. What an email. I got some good games out of that email. Hemrock, brother. I owe you a chiptune special, man. I'm going to make this happen. Thank you so much. It's good to hear from you. Emails like that are the reason why it's worth running a podcast, even if only a person or two listen, because you can get things out of it. You can learn things. And that's a difficult thing to put a price on. Oh, earphones fell off. Okay, shifting gears to go back to YouTube so we can check out some of the comments from last week. Dropping back to a week ago. Sendu says, you didn't need to dig for that old Neo Arcadia opening. We used that on the Fastcast. Yes, my apologies, Sendu, and thank you for pointing that out. Alex Swingle. Okay, there was a bunch of comments on the Sean is not into the rave video, which is the most popular video I put on TCR in quite a while. Go figure. It's like listening to a washer during the spin cycle, am I right? Kaiser writes, Sean's thought bubble, help, I'm trapped in a PS1 soundtrack. Had a couple of random comments on the old Strange Pocket Game Player thing, and then Hemrock writes in from last week, I believe you asked me to describe the Master of Orion 2. Well, take Master of Orion 1, set up the graphics by a notch, step up the graphics by a notch, and get rid of all the sliders, and insert planet improvements a la Civilization series. The second in the series also offers you the possibility of having more than one planet in a solar system, as well as a customizable race. I prefer Master of Orion 2. You know what? It's better. It's a better game. What can I say? I don't know. My favor of the original Master of Orion has nothing to do with the game being better or worse. It's just that's the game that got my time when that series came across my path. But that's the fail bag. That's what I got. Thank you, everyone, for checking in, for hanging out, and for listening, and playing some games and spending some time here on TCR. I know everybody's tired of being inside. It's quarantine. We've all had enough of it. We're ready to go out and play and do what we can. But don't give up. Keep at it. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. And I'll see you next week.